Hi, it's me, Paul Dalzell. I am the worship coordinator of this, the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Charleston. Welcome all of you, our members, our friends. If this is your first time here or your first time here in a while, we welcome you and thank you for joining us today. We come together today to worship on the lands the Shawnee, Cherokee, Delaware, and the Iroquoian nations, including the Seneca and Mingo, used as hunting grounds. Before that, the Adena culture flourished in this area from about 1000 to 200 BCE. That culture is responsible for the remarkable earthwork burial mounds like the Creole Mound in South Charleston. We should also acknowledge that we are in land that was once a slave plantation, as was most of this land west of the Elk River, although at that time in Charleston proper, east of the Elk, most households had at least one house slave. You came here looking for something this morning. It might have been a connection with others, a community, a place to ground yourself, inspiration, or refuge from a world gone mad. Whatever brought you here, we are glad it did. Today's Unitarian Universalists are non-creedal, deliberately pluralist, and unambiguously and unapologetically progressive. We believe everyone has inherent worth and dignity, and that everything is interconnected. The crux of this faith is to do good and get better. When we gather to worship in this place, with all of our differences, we shape what is of worth to us. To gather in communities, to sit together, to sing together, to listen, and to find peace. Please know that all of us welcome you. And we typically do that in song. Please join us in singing our welcome song. We sing it twice, and if you feel comfortable doing so, greet those around you with a smile, a nod, or a hello in your order of service and on the screen.
Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you.
Please do check your insert for goings-on here at UUC this coming week and in the near future. A reminder, this is our third Sunday potluck. I hope you brought something delicious to share if you remembered and were able to. Please join us in the web room after the service for food and conversation. Also, Save a Life Day packing for 2026 will happen right here at UUC in this very room during the week of August 11th through August 16th. A detailed schedule was in the weekly newsletter and is included in your order of service, where we are relying on multiple volunteers to turn UUC into the Save a Life Day beginning for the entire country. Last year, right from this room, we shipped literally hundreds of boxes of life-saving supplies to multiple counties in every state in this nation. Please come and help that week if you are able, and if not, plan to attend our day of service for Save a Life Day on Sunday, August 16th. So that you can be part of this truly monumental occasion. And lastly, Due to rumors of a planned protest here at our congregation by staff from the West Virginia Citizen Action Group and others, Joe Solomon has voluntarily canceled his visit next week to discuss the book, So You've Been Publicly Shamed. He's done this to protect us, UUC, from backlash. In his place, we have Archana Narasimhan. Archana, you may remember, spoke quite eloquently last summer in a service titled Good Grief. She has also sung here a few times. We are thankful she agreed to step in, and I am certain her service will be great. The title will be Divine Retribution, the Dehumanization in Cancel Culture, and How to Actually Create the Conditions for Change. Her blurb is Integrating Findings from Medical Literature on Shame, Clinical Trials on Related Stressors, Psychological Frameworks on Behavioral Change, and Sociological Studies on Community Building. Archana investigates the effectiveness of punitive measures alongside more transformative methods to achieve individual and systematic change. The interdisciplinary discussion further explores philosophical and spiritual concepts of meaning-making, the dark night of the soul, and the speaker's own journey from self-hatred leading into bigotry to learning to recognize oneness and paving the way home to self-love. Follow-up questions are welcome, with the speaker's gentle invitation to be prepared to get vulnerable and co-create the answers together. For our chalice lighting this morning, we Answer the Call of Love by Julia Corbett Haymayer. It is a responsive reading. Your part is also inserted in your orders of service. Yours is the italics, and I'm going to ask Ian to come up and light our chalice, if he would be so kind. In the face of hate, in the face of exclusion, in the face of homophobia and transphobia, in the face of racism, in the face of xenophobia, in the face of misogyny, in the face of demagoguery, in the face of religious intolerance, in the face of narrow nationalism, in the face of bigotry, in the face of despair, as Unitarian Universalists, we answer the call of love, now more than ever. For many of us, what makes us special is that we are a community. By sharing our joys, our celebrations, our sorrows, our concerns, our peace, and our needs, our community becomes closer and stronger. And that is the community we all need in these times. So a personal joy is for this and all the communities we are a part of. For those who hold us close, those who care, and those we care for. and a sorrow for all those who are unhoused in this unbearable heat this past week, and for the sad hearts of those who condemn them and make their lives harder. For all these joys and sorrows, both spoken and those that remain in our hearts unspoken, may we remember shared joy is multiplied and shared sadness is diminished. Our reading today is Love the Hell Out of This World by Susan Frederick Gray. Susan Frederick Gray was the previous minister of the UUA, of our association that we are a part of. This is from the winter edition of the 2018 UU World magazine. We live in a tumultuous time of struggle that is literally life and death for many people. This forces us to question the way we have done things and how it has brought us here. In this challenging time, what to do is not always clear. We can't always right the things that have been broken. Tension, divisiveness, and the complexity of multiple experiences is real. Within this, there is a spiritual challenge to practice being fully present, to take in the tumult, the pain, the anger, the discomfort, ours and others, without turning away, without placating or denying, but instead holding the complexity and allowing it to deepen our compassion and help guide how we act. Could there be a powerful and simple anchor for Unitarian Universalists, a clear articulation of our calling in this time? I am reminded, she says, of a t-shirt she saw at General Assembly a few years ago. It read simply, "Love the hell out of this world." The phrase came from the Reverend Joanna Fontaine Crawford. Our Universalist ancestors didn't believe in hell, except for the ones we create here in this life. What would it mean to show up in the places where suffering and violence, persecution and inhumanity prevail, and to bring an active, powerful form of love that affirms dignity, liberation, and peace? It would mean leaving the confines of privilege to show up in solidarity, engaging and being in the struggle with those most directly impacted by injustice. It means siding with the national prisoners' strike, with refugees and children criminalized and jailed. It means ending police violence. It means showing up against anti-Muslim and anti-Semitic policies and rhetoric. It means showing up with our sisters in the streets and in the voting booths to recognize the dignity and integrity of women's lives, bodies, and choices. Answering this deeper call of our theology and mission is the quality that ensures our congregations and communities are not merely social clubs, but real agents of moral and spiritual change. All religious communities are unavoidably a part of the status quo. We are ancient institutions with special privileges in the community and tax-protected status. However, if we are not also acting fearlessly for human dignity, compassion, justice, and peace, then we are failing to live our mission. Love the hell out of this world. It says it pretty well about how we are called theologically and faithfully to be in the world. Imagine what might be unleashed or transformed if each of our congregations asked, how are we loving the hell out of this world? How does this mission cause us to rethink the ways we have been living, investing, and working for our values in the world? May we love the hell out of the world each day. Please join me in reading our covenant to each other. Love is the spirit of our faith, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Let's take a moment to sit and breathe, to meditate, to ponder, to pray, but most of all, to sit here with one another in community. Please relax in your chairs. Plant your feet on the floor. Square your shoulders. Feel free to close your eyes or unfocus them or gaze into our chalice flame. Breathe. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Settle into this moment, this space. Our words today are your past, your path is yours. In a world where the information that informs us, the news we receive, is ruled by algorithms and corporations, let's take this time to breathe and center ourselves. We gather in a tradition that honors the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We gather to affirm that every person, no matter their origin, their creed, or their identity, has inherent worth and dignity. Listen to the stillness within you. We know that our faith is centered in love. It's not mandated by the government or by a hierarchy of elders. It's found in the quiet, radical work of justice, equity, and compassion. It's found in the willingness to embrace the marginalized, to welcome the stranger, and to recognize the sacred web of all existence of which we are a part. Let us hold fast to the conviction that love is our doctrine and service is our prayer. Let us commit in the quiet of our hearts to being a voice for religious pluralism and a sanctuary for conscience. As we sit together in community, gather our values with you. Remember that there is more than one path to enlightenment, and that that journey is yours to travel. Although the founders of our nation excluded many when they declared all men are created equal, they had the right idea. There is and must be a separation between church and state. Your spiritual path forward is yours, and yours alone. We can share values, we can walk together, but I cannot tell you how or where you must go, nor you me. So I mentioned in my June 14th message that in 2022, at the last service he took part in here, in this sanctuary, the Reverend Jim Lewis said to me, "Paul, Christian nationalism is what we need to talk about. We can't let that happen to us." But we have let it happen, haven't we? First, as I always do, let's define it. According to Merriam-Webster, Christian nationalism is an ideology calling for a government that incorporates or endorses aspects of the Christian religion, as by making decisions, laws, policies, etc., in accordance with Christian beliefs, by engaging in government promotion of Christianity, or by legally enforcing Christian doctrine. The phrase was first used in 1942. Now, let's look at how widespread it is and who identifies as Christian nationalists. According to a study done in 2023 by PRRI, the Public Religion Research Institute, roughly 3 in 10 Americans qualify as Christian nationalist adherents or sympathizers. And here in West Virginia, as in the other red states, it's even worse. 51% of West Virginians are either adherents or sympathizers of Christian nationalism. Unsurprisingly, at the state level, support for Christian nationalism is strongly correlated with voting for President Trump. Overall, as the proportion of Christian nationalists in a state increases, the percentage of residents who voted for Trump also increases. If the analysis is restricted to white Americans only, the relationship between state-level support for Christian nationalism and votes for Trump become even stronger. Going back to that PRRI study, studies analyzing the core base of Christian nationalists find that about 71% to 74% are non-Hispanic white, 11 to 13% are black, and 10 to 14% are Hispanic. Christian nationalism is strongly linked to evangelical born-again identity and frequent church attendance. Christian nationalists are more likely than those who reject those views to hold theological beliefs that are markers of some charismatic strands of Christianity, beliefs about modern-day prophecy, spiritual healing, and the prosperity gospel. And Christian nationalists are more likely to support political violence than other groups. A majority of Christian nationalism adherents, 54%, and 45% of sympathizers agree that there is a storm coming soon that will sweep away the elites in power and restore the rightful leaders, compared with only 22% of skeptics and 7% of rejectors. Christian nationalists are about twice as likely as other Americans to believe political violence may be justified. Nearly 4 in 10 Christian nationalism adherents and 1/3 of sympathizers agree that because things have gotten so far off track, true American patriots may have to resort to violence to save the country, compared to only 17% of skeptics and 7% of the rejectors. And yes, we do know who they vote for and where they get their news from. Among white Americans and Hispanic Americans, but not black Americans, holding Christian nationalist beliefs is strongly correlated with the Republican Party identity and support for Trump. Black Americans who hold Christian nationalist beliefs are not significantly more likely than black Americans overall to identify as Republican. Black Christian nationalists are only slightly more likely than black Americans overall to hold favorable views of Trump. White Christian nationalists are far more likely than Hispanic and black Christian nationalists to prioritize the issues of immigration and access to guns when they think about supporting a political candidate. White Christian nationalists are far more likely than Hispanic or black Christian nationalists to say they most trust Fox News or far-right television news sources to give them accurate information about current events and politics. Christian nationalists also hold more extreme views about immigrants and are more likely to say mandatory vaccines for children should be illegal. Majorities of Christian nationalism adherents, 67%, and sympathizers, 53%, believe that immigrants are invading our country and replacing our cultural and ethnic background. Majorities of Christian nationalism adherents and sympathizers agree with the U.S. government deporting undocumented immigrants to foreign prisons without due process. While at least half of Christian nationalism adherents and sympathizers support birthright citizenship, majorities agree with stripping U.S. citizens of their citizenship and deporting them if they are determined to be a threat to the country. Over 4 in 10 Christian nationalism adherents and 1/3 of the sympathizers say that mandatory vaccines for children should be illegal in all or most cases, compared to 1/4 of skeptics and 1 in 10 rejectors. Again, majorities agree with stripping U.S. citizens of their citizenship and deporting them if they are determined to be a threat to the country. Cities, counties, states, and our federal government have all either attempted to or have passed laws which label protesting, filming, or even writing negatively about the current regime as a threat to our country. They are getting bolder, aren't they? You may have seen the pictures of 50 white masked shows my short-term memory. White masked men marching to and surrounding a black woman on public transport on their way to the National Mall over the 250th anniversary weekend of America's founding. I've seen them on our very own streets marching. This has happened all over the country, large and small cities. I even had my "fuck fascism" sticker ripped off my truck in the middle of the night. It's okay though. I now have 2 rainbow stickers with glitter ready to go on my truck saying the same thing. And I ordered this sticker echoing the phrase the great Woody Guthrie scrawled on his guitar for the truck. I realized after it came that it would be barely visible on my dark gray truck, and I don't play guitar like Woody and some of our members do. This seems to be my instrument, so I wanted to put it here instead. Sarah convinced me that some might object if I put it directly on the pulpit, so I put it on this piece of the altar instead, so it can travel with me. Let's next look at how and when this movement started, and then at what the UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association, has to say about it. First, from an article, Americans United for Separation of Church and State, published in September of 2023, titled The Origin Story, The History of Christian Nationalism is Littered with Hate and Extremism. Gerald Lyman Kenneth Smith is the man to blame for the inception of Christian nationalism. A political organizer for U.S. Senator Huey Long in the 30s, Smith was a fascist, a rabid anti-Semite, and anti-communist. In the early 40s, Smith started the Christian Nationalist Crusade, the Christian Nationalist Party, and the America First Party, and an extremist monthly publication called The Cross and the Flag. Smith was, as Professor Seth Kotler described him, someone who believed that communism was a Jewish plot and the communists used black people as their pawns to try to overthrow white Christian American civilization in the name of communism. Smith peddled the myth of America's Christian founding to his base, including through his publication, which had a mailing list of over 3 million people. Smith used this idea to paint non-Christians as outsiders, although his definition of Christian was somewhat narrow. For a while, Catholics and Mormons were not included under the Christian nationalist umbrella of Christianity. Kotler explained that the idea that America belongs to Christian people, to white Christian people, and that others are maybe to be tolerated as kind of guests or as visitors, as second-class Americans, but not quite real Americans like us. That builds upon a history that is surrounded by patriotism around the founding fathers and how Christian they were. Christian nationalism has always been deeply rooted in anti-Semitic and fascist beliefs. What has changed, however, is that Christian nationalism has seen increased influence among the right wing. It's also gained a resurgence during the Red Scare in the 1940s and 50s, during McCarthyism. In 1956, Truman replaced E pluribus unum with "In God we trust" as the nation's motto. The 1962 Supreme Court ruling to ban school-sponsored prayer in public schools was a turning point within contemporary Christian nationalism, especially regarding its wider embrace by the American right. That angered certain people within Christianity and gave Christian nationalists new material with which to recruit the newly outraged crowd. No problem. Sorry. This combination of access and ammunition helped shape the movement. Before this ruling, there was an energy that builds up into the 60s. But part of what Christian nationalist political movement was up against was the historical reticence of Christians to be open in their politics, Kotler said. There was that sort of separation of church and state. And it's like, well, we have our religious beliefs and we care about it, but I'm not going to go campaign and talk to people about my faith or my church. But after these rulings, that reticence started to melt away. Although people were outraged over the school prayer rulings for a number of reasons, a segment of the opposition was very clearly anti-Semitic, especially against the Anti-Defamation League and the American Civil Liberties Union. The rulings fed into Smith's anti-Semitic rhetoric and bolstered Christian nationalism's appeal to extremists looking for a scapegoat. That anti-Semitism fits well into the platform of Christian nationalism because hate is critical to the upkeep of a white Christian society. This trend continued into the 70s, and religion became a force that was not to be kept to oneself, but that legitimized one's voice in politics. This energy was capitalized upon in the 80s with the rise of the Reverend Jerry Falwell's moral maturity and later TV preacher Pat Robinson's Christian Coalition. During the 1980 election, Ronald Reagan actively courted these forces. The story from there has been one of continued GOP acceptance of Christian nationalist ideals and talking points, which have helped Christian nationalism go mainstream. Now, one of the most troubling innovations that has happened since is using the language of religious freedom and defining that as the freedom to discriminate in the name of your religion. Kotlar, in the article, says the same thing happened with Christian nationalists concerning the LGBTQ plus community, observing it's just like what people say to discriminate against same-sex couples. It's because God tells us the truth about what proper sexuality is. God has told us what these truths are, so we're just acting out this truth. You call it bigotry, right? You call it discrimination. We call it expressing our religious freedom. And that argument back in the 60s and 70s, by most people, was regarded as ludicrous. It's not the way that works, but that's become pretty much of an accepted part of our national discourse. And I think the way a lot of these folks think about it is that the job of the Supreme Court is to protect the right of religious people to be bigots in the name of freedom, and prioritizing that freedom over the experience of people who've been subjected to historical forms of marginalization and oppression, and so on. Christian nationalism was founded upon anti-Semitism, anti-communism, and the upkeep of a white Christian ethno-state. It is rooted in hate and relies on discrimination by design. Knowledge of Christian nationalism's origin is essential to understanding the threat it poses today. Okay, that's the backstory and a brief history. So what can we do about it? Let's look at what the UUA is doing and saying about it. First, and this won't surprise anyone who's been a UU for very long, we're talking about it. The Reverend Cecilia Kingman's 2023 Berry Street essay, My Little Pony Was Right, Fascism Within and Without, is an excellent essay and presentation that she delivered to the UU Ministers Association. It's well worth reading and or listening to. Just go to the UUA website and type in Kingman's Berry Street essay to find it. In it, in part, she says, fascism without seems pretty obvious. We all know that we are in a moment of grave danger. If anyone is left wondering how bad it is, it's very, very bad. It's alarmingly easy, however, for us to grow acclimated and numb unless we pay rigorous attention to the strategies and timelines used by fascists. She goes on, we're also seeing a rise in fascist thinking within our own faith community. Not necessarily the political ideologies we associate with fascism, but the style of thinking. Please understand, I do not say this lightly. Unitarian Universalism is currently in a moment of major theological transformation and institutional reform. This transition is causing a backlash within our congregations and among some colleagues. We're moving away from individualism to communitarian values, from white supremacy culture to truly radical liberation, from a concentration of power among historically privileged groups and towards a new form of power sharing. Some are responding to these shifts with anxiety and conflict. Some who are being asked to give up the primacy of their privilege and power are responding with tactics drawn from fascist politics. I've seen this firsthand. A previous minister commanded me, "We do not talk about other ministers." I said this repeatedly, while telling people with power over me that I did not respect authority when I spoke my truth. Why? I can only infer that it was because the church leadership hierarchy was more important to them than an honest opinion. Now, Kingman also lists Stanley's 10 tactics of fascism, and yes, does talk about a two-part episode of My Little Pony, wherein the ponies combat fascism. She then says, though it's very simple, and it only took the ponies 12 and a half minutes, they were right. To fight fascists, we have to do several things. First, we must insist that truth is real, that facts are facts. Second, we must continue to develop theologies and praxis of liberation. Watch for liberation is rising and follow it. And I should not have to say this again, but I will. Liberation is complete. Freedom is not partial. She said in her essay, we must also protect institutions under authoritarian attacks. However, protecting our institutions does not mean preserving old mythologies and old structures of power. She concludes with this, my very dear ones, it's very easy to feel frightened and overwhelmed in an upward cycle of fascism. There is much hard work ahead. But there is also joy and friendship and healing on this side, right here in this struggle. We are strong, we are glorious, we are so very beautiful and brave. And we are creating pockets of resistance and liberation that will endure. We may not see the full liberation of all beings in our own lifetime, but I promise you that there are blazing moments of liberatory joy. There are glimpses of the kingdom all along this path. Beloveds, above all, keep watch for joy. There's also another page on the UUA website called Combating Fascisms Within and Without, an organized UU response, which has a couple of webinars and other tools available. And the latest action taken by the UUA is outlined in an article titled, In Letter to Trump, UUA demands end to the Iran war and calls out extremist Christian nationalism in U.S. military. It's in the UU World magazine from April 16th of this year. Signed by UUA President Reverend Dr. Sylvia Betancourt and multiple other UU leaders, the letter was addressed to Trump, House Speaker Mike Johnson, and Senate Majority Leader John Thune. We feel compelled to write today because this country has entered into a military conflict with another nation, the Islamic Republic of Iran. And according to published reports, those leading this war have been invoking extremist Christian rhetoric about biblical end times to justify involvement in the Iran war to troops, it states. In other words, this conflict is being justified by fundamentalist religious traditions that are antithetical to the values of millions of American believers, including those of Unitarian Universalists across this country. On behalf of the tens of thousands of UUs, their families, and their congregations, we call on you to end this war and to end military interventions based on a radical religious ideology that most Americans do not share. So this sermon is in keeping with our UU values and actions taken by UU leaders. We may be heading into another civil war. I sure hope not. So then I started thinking about the coal miners. Came to me as almost a stream of consciousness, so that's how I'm going to read it. Back in the early 70s, people were doing okay. The UMWA was strong, miners were working, were on strike, but still getting paid. And when the miners were working, they needed houses and cars, so carpenters were working, and they bought cars. So car dealers made money. Then they wrecked the cars because they were driving long distances and working hard, back-breaking hours. So the mechanics were working. Schools had decent attendance and a good tax base, so the smart kids were working. Then that preacher on TV said the Dems were killing babies, and the blacks in the cities were living on welfare and driving Cadillacs. So we elected Reagan. He started destroying the unions, and the coal companies started strip mining. But Massey paid real good money, and they treated their workers right. They threw picnics and stuff. Corporations bought machinery to do the work the miners used to do. Seemed like overnight the miners weren't working. Hardly anyone was. And then drug companies, like the one Patrick Morrissey used to work for, brought in the opioids. Because the miners were still getting their black lung checks, and some still had insurance. For the others, the country was in the tech boom, so the government had well-funded Medicare and Medicaid. So they got the out-of-work miners and carpenters and mechanics hooked on drugs. That only made things worse. Then, after that black guy was in the White House, along comes Trump. Sure, he talked about a hard hat messing up his hairspray, but that woman called them deplorables. He was a successful businessman. He was confident. He promised to bring back coal. On Fox News, they told about how awful the Democrats were. They couldn't lie on the news, could they? He said all the stuff they needed to hear. He gave them something and someone new to hate, another opiate. He continued telling them it would be great again. And that was better than what Fox News said the Dems were doing. So is it any wonder that West Virginia voted for him 3 times? Is it any wonder that they believe that what they need is a good white Christian nation again, one they can be proud of? What I heard at the General Assembly worship service this year, a few weeks ago, brought me back to something, though. In 2024, UUs voted overwhelmingly in favor of stating that our religion has love at its center. Christian nationalism has the hate market cornered, no question. We cannot beat them by hating on them. And I'm not saying you should go out and love up on Pete Kegsbreath or J.D. Vance or Stephen Miller, or even give a big old hug and kiss on the mouth to one of them the next time the white supremacists march through our streets. The speaker who delivered the sermon at GA said, and I'm saying, we all need to keep love at the center of all we do. And yes, like the My Little Ponies and Kingman's essay, we need to do several things at once. But we can do that. We can write letters and protest and vote and get others to vote and get mad when injustices are done and speak up and all the other stuff. But we need to keep love at the center. I admit, I have struggled with the concept of love over the years. Talked about that here. Love can look like many things, big and small. One person who's helped me understand it is Sarah Stone, who hopefully has her toes in the sand right now at the beach on her much-needed vacation. Sarah shows what love is when she picks up a kitten in the middle of the Five Corners intersection, when she drives to a member's house because they forgot their purse here or nobody had heard from them in a few days, when she puts on an event for over 200 people month after month after month so folks can get food, clothing, pet supplies, and more. She shows it when she lets me vent and when she vents to me, when she adopts her chosen son and gives him what he needs, when she teaches and loves up on her daughter and helps her mother, when she does the thousands of things every day that I don't even know about. I've tried to learn it. I'm probably 10% as good at it as she is, which might make me better than a lot of humans. But we're trying, right? We can be nice to service workers. We can take a moment to tell them good job and give them a sincere thank you when they're looking frazzled because they're shorthanded. We can talk to folks while we're waiting in line with them. Might make their day a little better. We can hold the door with a smile when someone is about to go through it. We can reach out to friends and family when we haven't heard from them for a while. We can step up and do a little more to help those who need it. We won't beat the fascists at hate, but maybe, just maybe, if we keep doing the little things, we can win a few of them over. If we keep love at the center of who we are. Thank you. Please be seated for our closing words, which today are Our Work Has Just Begun by Emily Richards. Please take a moment to be present, to pause, and to notice how you are in this moment. Our time here today is at an end, and our work has just begun. The work of holding one another and this community in love. The work of trusting that we are on the right path. The work of believing that what connects us is stronger than what separates us. The work of engaging in that which makes us whole. The work of deeper understanding and commitment. The work of letting go of that which does not serve us. The work of radical inclusion. The work of collective liberation. The work of this beloved community. A beloved community of which we are all a part, a place where we are welcomed, respected, valued, and cherished. A place where we belong. Now, Jamie and Nettie will now perform our postlude.
All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. All shall be well. All shall